experience or give some of those proof points as we go along. But yeah, we're at a really important moment. So we're both at an important moment where we had this 10-year climate action plan, which was adopted in 2015, wrapping up in 2025. And then we're starting to look at what's coming next. At the same time, as we're, as the capital planning and neighborhood initiatives and others at Loyola are creating this sort of campus master plan and thinking about the use and the space and their sort of future program and planning for our campuses. So we want to make sure that all those big important decisions that are being made, the things that we build, the spaces that we manage and operate are also aligned with these sustainability and climate values that we have as an institution. That's sort of my job, is to help connect the dots there. So this isn't going to be the most interactive presentation. I'm sorry. I'm going to start sharing slides here in a moment. But I would really encourage you, as Jennifer said, there's going to be some opportunities to give feedback using the tools that have been shared with the community. But also, we're a small group. So if you want to share things in the chat, ask questions in the chat. And maybe a little later, we'll take a break and you can raise your hand and we can call on folks, get off of mute. But for the time being, we're going to ask folks stay on mute so we can just sort of get through some of the content, because I'm unfortunately, it is a little bit more of a presentation on some of the things we've done to address and to sort of the goals that we set forward on our first climate action plan. So that I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to go kind of quickly. If for some reason you need me to go back or show a slide, I'll just say from the get-go, everybody who registered for this, as Jennifer said, we have over 40 people registered for this. Obviously, we have a smaller group with us tonight, but we can share these slides. That's no problem whatsoever. I'm actually not recording. Do you think I should record, Jennifer, in case anybody wants to see the recording? Any opinion there?
I have a little icon that says the meeting is recording.
Oh,
So I think it is recording.
it is recording. Oh, all right.
Yeah, so
Someone's
we'll be
recording.
able to download it to
Yeah.
or upload it to YouTube and then share it out that way.
All right. So there is a recording happening. Great. But also the slides, if there's any of the graphics or the images that I'm going to share that are important to you, feel free. We'll use those. Just reference Loyola in the Office of Sustainability if you would. So hopefully I'm going to share my screen right now. Maybe a thumbs up that everybody can see that. I appreciate that very much. All right. Thanks, Cecilia. All right, here we go. So you can see my name there at the bottom. As Jennifer said, I am the director of the Office of Sustainability. I've been at Loyola almost 13 years, a good long time. I worked at the city of Chicago before that in the Department of Environment. So certainly I always have lots of things to say about the city government and how things are progressing around environmental issues in the city, but that's probably a topic for another day. The This is the outline of what we want to touch on, a little bit background on sustainability just generally at Loyola, specifically what we did related to our 2015 climate action plan, what we're working towards with our next 2.0 version of our climate action plan, and then a little bit of feedback and discussion at the end. I have a few prompts or questions that you can give feedback on if appropriate. If you don't feel like that's useful, again, I'll give you some other ways that you can give us some feedback and some contributions. But thanks so much for being here. If you do want to sorry, I'm going to move my chat over here so I can see it. If you do want to put your name, if you feel like you want to share who you are with the folks who are here, it's really helpful just to type in your name in the chat. And if you have a different affiliation with Loyola or relationship with Loyola that you want to share, feel free and put that in there, just so we know maybe if folks are coming from different angles or they want to share certain perspectives. We appreciate that. So, all right. So I think most of you know Loyola, but I always want to remind folks that Loyola isn't just the Lakeshore campus. Of course, our Water Tower campus, our health science campus out in Maywood, and then we have the Retreat and Ecology campus in Woodstock, Cuneo Mansion and Gardens in Vernon Hills, and the Felice Rome Center in Rome, Italy. Those are our main properties. So here's a little overview slide of sort of where we're located in the Chicagoland region. I get to work on sustainability across all of these campuses, and so it's really, I always want to make sure that what we're working on isn't just for sort of the undergraduate Lakeshore campus or the professional Water Tower campus. So, but it really does serve all 12,000 undergrads, 5,000 grad students, 4,000 employees. this is at a very high level, sort of what the journey we've been on. So you see this graphic. It was a drawing from 1924, I think. There in the left, it was sort of an image of the Lakeshore campus. I know Jennifer mentioned this in some of the other community meetings. I just looked it up before we got on here in my history of Loyola University. So 1906. Loyola bought the 19 and a half acres, bordered by the the lake, and wasn't Sheridan at the top, but Sheridan. And then of course the first buildings, 19 the well, there were four buildings sort of in the early years: Alumni Hall, the Jesuit Residence, Cudahy Science, and Dumbach Hall, sort of the earliest buildings. And of course you see some of the newer buildings and all throughout time. But the graphic that's at the bottom of this slide is about energy efficiency. So the buildings that are in deeper colors use more energy per square foot than the ones you see in the greens or the yellows. And you can see we've actually been turning over a lot of these buildings. We've been investing in the last, this is actually before our last climate action plan. It really looks over about the last 20 years of really making sure our buildings are as efficient as possible. When we think about climate change, reducing the energy you use in buildings is the first step you should always invest in before you start talking about clean energy, before you start talking about a bunch of other things. It's really about energy efficiency first and foremost. But now we're at a time where we're visioning that what you see in the top right, which is sort of a graphic representation of the vision that we have for the campus plan, and how do we make sure that these climate goals, these carbon goals, these sustainability goals, follow through with all the projects that will be put into place as part of that process. Why do we do sustainability at Loyola? I boil it, there's lots of reasons, but I'll boil it down into two different factoids. The one on the left is the Jesuit Universal Apostolic Preferences. These are the four priorities for all Jesuits globally for this decade. And the one that you'll see in the bottom left corner, the one in green, to collaborate in the care of our common home. So Jesuits, one of the four priorities for the full order across the globe is this value of sustainability. As Pope Francis calls for it in Laudato Si, it's a concept of integral ecology. What we do to people, we do to the planet, and what we do to the planet, we do to people. And so we've been working towards that and trying to embody that value within the work that we do here at Loyola. On the right side of this slide is another driver for us, and that's the significance of sustainability for our students. This is a survey that we give to incoming first year students. So every year you see there, you can see it's the fall incoming class going all the way back to fall 2018. A sort of small font. I apologize, but again, I can share these slides. But I will just show the top blue line is the students who said important or very important to the question, how important is our commitment to sustainability, our sustainability programming, and your decision, that student's decision to attend Loyola. So while I work a lot with students that are studying environmental science or ecology or environmental policy or sustainability, this is not just sustainability students. When we're talking about 57% of incoming first year Loyola students, this is math students, this is nursing students, this is business students, this is humanities students. So we know it's a really important value. We also know it's a differentiator amongst the great schools that we have here in Chicagoland and the great schools across the Jesuit network in the United States. So that's why it's really important to us. These two values, the Jesuit value of care for our common home and the significance of it to our students. And so we really need to meet them where they're at and make sure we're not just talking about it, but we're doing it. A real quick overview of sustainability. If you've never seen this graphic before, we call it the triple bottom line, but it's environment. I mean, many of you may be here because you're driven by the environmental aspect of sustainability, but we also really are committed to the sustainability, the social aspect and the economic aspects. We have to make sure this is accessible for everybody, right? And so this is a simple way. This is, we call it triple bottom line, or the three stools of the three legs of the stool of sustainability. But let me just take this really in sort of the Loyola concept or the Loyola context for a second. And I changed the words to our campus, our infrastructure, our culture, our co-curricular residence life, to be an employee at Loyola, to be in the community next to Loyola, and then the curriculum, right? What we're here for, the academics, the research, that piece. And for me, our best sustainability projects are ones that touch not on just the infrastructure, just a super cool green building or a new solar project or something like energy efficiency project, not just a new degree or a new class, not just a really great speaker or climate change conference or something like that, but where all those three things come together. And when those can be met, then we meet the sort of triple bottom line for sustainability at Loyola. So just something to share the way we approach this work. We've got a long history. I don't expect you to read this slide, but you see buildings here. You see like cool projects like biodiesel, our urban ag program. When we've gotten resignate or different awards or different sort of yeah, we've been recognized for sustainability in different ways. You see some of these things we did around energy, the deep investment on energy efficiency you see highlighted here. But I'll just show you, this is something we've been working at for some time. It's not something brand new. Um, so let me give you a background on our 2015 climate action plan. We adopted this in 2015. Um, it actually was aligned with the release of Pope Francis's Laudato Si. Laudato Si, of course, was the Pope's encyclical on ecology, which really called for us to address climate and environmental issues and degradation globally. Well, we did that. We sort of identified, could we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions? And we focused primarily on the emissions from our buildings. So this is the electricity that we use, the natural gas we consume, and the fuel that we put in our vehicles. Loyola doesn't have a very big vehicle fleet. It's about 50 vehicles, but half of those are golf carts. So the things that you think of as like trucks or cars or vans are really small, very modest, especially when you compare us to like a big state school or something like that. We're in an urban campus, so we don't need to have all those vehicles and that kind of stuff. But we sort of identified that we thought we could have a goal of eliminating our emissions from our scope 1 and 2, again, the energy used in our buildings and our vehicles, by 2025. So how are we doing on that goal? This is what it looks like. This is the greenhouse gas inventory that we do every year. Each bar is a year's emissions. And if you look at that graphic on the bottom left corner and you kind of squint at the main graphic, I think we're doing pretty well. I think it looks a lot like what we said we were going to do. There's still a little bit of work to do, of course, but this is only up to 2023. We're always sort of reporting a little bit later. You can't do it real time. You have to sort of track it a little later. But if you want to see the lines that are there, the green line and the sort of peach colored line, that's actually our area. So the square footage of our facilities. The peach color line is our student population, so our student body. And then the yellow line is actually weather. So years that are very cold and very hot or higher, years that are more mild throughout, both heating and cooling, are sort of below the line. And so that directly impacts the energy we use. So even if we're energy efficient, if we have a really cold year or really hot year, that bar goes up. And so that directly controls sort of how we use energy and our carbon footprint. But as you can see, we're doing pretty well. Let's jump into some of the ways we do that. We've made our buildings much more energy efficient, as I already mentioned. The grid, the power grid that brings electricity to our campus and your home and my home, is also getting much cleaner. Coal plants are shutting down. Clean, renewable energy, new solar farm, new wind farm. If you've driven across any interstate anytime in the last 5 years, you've seen those wind farms. You might start seeing more solar farms, of course, with great energy policy here in the state of Illinois, and with things like the Inflation Reduction Act at the federal level, more and more. Loyola has done some projects, which I'll talk about in a second, to make sure all of our energy is coming from clean sources, and the emissions that we still produce from natural gas are abated through a project that we are going to announce sort of shortly publicly, but I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. And we've got a commitment to decarbonization that's coming up. We love to find learning opportunities as we're doing these projects. We call it Campus's Laboratory. So this is just a long list of campus's laboratory projects that were in support of this climate action plan. You can see graphic or like photos on the right-hand side of students helping do waste audits, students doing energy audits, students directly in classrooms helping people use the spaces more energy efficient, students getting tours of our big central plants, students addressing food waste, like you see in the bottom right, those two students with our Clean Plate Challenge. All kinds of things that we do to really get our students as involved in this process as possible, because ultimately that's what we're here for as a university. All right. This has led to some awards. Jennifer mentioned, how are we doing? How do we, compare to our neighbors and our competitors? We've got some great awards. I have a couple right in my office. You might see them. There's a big block of wood over there that was for sustainable athletics facilities. I've got some up there related to sustain our climate action plan. Two different times our climate action plan got national awards. We were a green ribbon school, that sort of green one that you can see back in the corner. So yeah, we've been recognized in a lot of different ways, but we continue to aspire and push harder. If you're interested in like how we look at sustainability ratings or rankings or those kinds of things, there's a tool called STARS. It stands for the Sustainability Tracking Assessment and Rating System. You see it in the top right corner of my slide here. And it is really the tool that we use, not just for our footprint for climate, but also how many sustainability classes do we teach? How do we engage our employees, our staff, our faculty? How do we engage the community? How do we engage um, maybe nonprofits? Do we do any advocacy work? Do we go out there and support any policies? What are we doing with our endowment? What are we doing with our human resources policies or our wellness program? All kinds of things really are reflected in here, as well as the operational things like how much water did we use? How much energy do we use? How much waste did we generate? Things like that. All right, there's a lot of information on this slide, so I'm going to jump through this, but just to say, we do have a lot of proof points, and we have a great single page, which lists all of Loyola's commitments and recognitions and awards. If you ever want to look at that, I can put the link to that in the chat as we go. Of course, we have some stellar examples, specific projects, specific buildings. One that many of you might know about is our School of Environmental Sustainability, real unique and existing building and new construction together. The biggest geothermal system in the city of Chicago when we built it. There is currently a bigger one. That is, I think, operational. If not, it's probably going to be turned on this winter. That's down at the Obama Presidential Library in Hyde Park. But it's using much of the same technology as what we did with the School of Environmental Sustainability, just on a bigger scale. So you see examples there in the middle graphic of the geothermal, those wells going underground. You bringing heat out of the ground in the winter to heat the building, and then in the summer, taking heat out of the building and leaving it in the ground. Obviously, we love the technology of geothermal. You'll hear more about that in a moment. We also use this greenhouse as a way to sort of bring fresh air into the space, and also to use passive ventilation. You see it sort of in the graphic there to move hot air through the space, but draw in cooler air, especially in the summer. And it's also a residence hall. It's also got research laboratories. It's also got offices and classrooms. So it's a very much a hybrid or a mixed use space. We're really excited about the kinds of ways that sustainability can bring these mix of solutions to bear. Another building that you may not be as familiar with is downtown at Water Tower campus. Again, another great high performing building. This is called the Schreiber Center. It's home to our Quinlan School of Business. So you're right at the corner of State Street and Pearson right here. But as you can see in the graphics, we use that entire atrium that you see, the sort of glass on the south facing wall, as a heat chimney. So as it heats up, as the atrium heats up, we open windows at the top and then windows at the very bottom, and the heat exhausts, and we bring in fresh air from the ground level. And it's a way, without using energy, to actually bring fresh air in and cool the spaces that we're in the summer. We also did a really neat project this summer where we used artificial intelligence to actually model how the building should be performing to get ahead of how we use the building and make it even more optimal from an energy efficiency perspective. But we also added into the AI how dirty the electric grid was at any given time. We know that information on about a 30-minute cycle of how all the coal plants, the renewables plants, the nuclear plants, everything that generates electricity on our grid are happening real time. And we told the AI that we wanted to actually have the building not just as efficient as possible, but lowest carbon as possible. And we were able to save a little energy, but a big cost by doing that, and a big carbon footprint by sort of using energy in the building to optimize this low carbon electricity source. So really neat stuff. It's been written up in some different publications. If you're interested in that, I can share a link to that too. We've done a lot of stormwater projects. The main picture here is an aerial from a few years ago or 2 years ago. This is the Piper Hall Garden where we put in a big stormwater project. I'm going to share a link in a little while that has a video that really highlights all our great stormwater projects. If you want to learn more about that, we have some resources. But anybody who's been at Loyola's campus, whether it's Ignatius Plaza, the graphic that you see in the bottom right, or the main part of the Lakeshore campus, or even at our Maywood campus or other places, know that we've really invested in permeable paving, green roofs, rain gardens, and a full stormwater treatment system. What that does is allows to rainwater to soak in the ground exactly where it falls instead of either, it polluting other waterways like the lake or like the Chicago River, or it going down into a sewer, basically filling up that sewer, leading to basement flooding, leading to flooded viaducts and other sort of low-lying areas across the city. So anything we can do to sort of cut the downspout and splash that water out where it falls, as long as it can infiltrate in the ground. Don't do it if it ends up flowing across the ground and flooding your neighbor. That's a bad thing. But if you can do that, that's what you should do. And of course, Loyola's campus is a model of that. We have people coming to visit us all the time just to see the sophisticated stormwater management we've been installing over the last 15, 20 years. Really, we've been leaders on sustainable stormwater management. A really big project I'm super excited about. You might have seen this. We did the press release about a year ago, but it goes live January 1st. It's called Double Black Diamond. It's the largest solar farm in Illinois. It's the largest solar farm this side of the Mississippi River. We are one of 7 customers for the project. Other customers include the city of Chicago, Cook County, PPG, State Farm Insurance. I won't list all the other corporate ones, but you can find it online. But basically, we've signed a contract with an electricity retailer to source all of our electricity from this big solar farm. It's going to be in central Illinois. It's just west of Springfield. And yeah, it's the part that we invested in is equal to the size of what Loyola needs for electricity for all 3 of our campuses. And so this was only made possible by CEJA, the Clean and Equitable Jobs Act, if you're familiar with that, the energy bill that passed back in 2019. But it really brought clean energy developers to the state of Illinois and made it available and accessible to customers like Loyola. So we're super excited about this. Is just a little example of how it works. It actually goes onto the grid. We're getting electricity off the grid. We're not getting just electricity straight from the farm. We're getting power from the grid, but we get the renewable energy credits that are associated with the production equal to our demand. They come through us so that we can claim completely clean electricity at Loyola. We've done some modeling. I don't know if you caught that on the campus's lab. We've looked at rooftop solar. We've looked at solar every location we can over parking lots and things like that. We estimate if we were going to put solar everywhere we wanted to at Loyola's campus, we might only generate 4 to 5% of the electricity we need. So we really needed to look for an offsite solution. And that's what this allows us to do, this Double Black Diamond project. We're super excited about it. And I'm happy to explain at length because I'm so, and the other thing I'm excited about is that we have an educational agreement. This is actually aerial photo of the project taken this summer. So those panels, they're probably producing electricity, but that electricity we can't claim it yet, not till January 1st when our contract goes live. But yeah, a percentage of those panels are attributed to Loyola, and we will be able to put students into a van, take them down to the site so they can get site tours. The project developers will be able to do guest lectures into our classes, whether they're here in person or doing it via Zoom. And we have data sharing agreements. So somebody like Tim O'Brien, who's a statistics professor, could take that data and do real statistics analysis on actual clean energy data that we will have access to. We'll also probably have dashboards on how the system is producing real time, but we'll also have really rich data that we can do all kinds of research with. And I'm talking with a number of faculty that are interested in using that data going forward. So we're excited about this project. Another thing I want to talk about is what we've done on natural gas. We've been trying to reduce the natural gas we consume. I won't go back to that old picture, but on that old rendering of Loyola, if you look in the very back, you'll see a big smokestack. Loyola, like most in Chicago in the early 1900s, burned coal. We all burned coal for heat, sometimes to turn it into steam, sometimes for other purposes, but we had steam boilers. So we were burning coal, we were burning oil for a little while. Now we started, you see that in 56, we did our first steam boiler using natural gas or oil. And then we went into new steam boilers sort of through the 60s and through the early 2000s. We actually have completely shut down our steam plant. We no longer generate steam at Loyola. Everything is now in a low temperature hot water system. So about 130-degree Fahrenheit water, which is way more efficient, both for saving energy and saving natural gas, but also if we're looking for electrical solutions to make heat. 130 is a lot easier than steam, at over 200 degrees. So it really gives us some opportunities going forward, and we had to invest in that over years and really change the campus. A lot of other things here I'm not going to talk about, but I will just say we have not eliminated natural gas at Loyola. We have a plan to do that. I'll talk about that as Climate Action Plan 2.0. But I will say we're committed to being carbon neutral by our goal of 2025. And so we partnered with a company called Tradewater. Tradewater goes out and finds one of the most harmful greenhouse gases, which are refrigerants. These are fluorocarbons, these are halons, these are used in refrigerant or in like heating and cooling equipment. They're used in automobiles, they're used in a lot of different technology. They are no longer legal through UN resolution, through local laws, or so federal laws at different levels, but they still exist. They're in the closets of HVAC companies. They're in some, shade tree mechanics garage. So they buy these and they destroy them before they can add to the climate crisis. And so we are helping sponsor Tradewater to do this and destroy these harmful greenhouse gases. And then we get to claim the carbon reduction benefit equal to our natural gas footprint. So we're really excited about that. We've invested in them for the next 3 years. So that's how we meet our goal of carbon neutral by 2025 is with Tradewater and the Double Black Diamond Project. So what's coming next? All kinds of great things. This is really where the rubber hits the road. We've been working on decarbonization, a plan for about the last year and a half. You see some graphics here that look at like how in our buildings emissions, that's what that chart on the top shows. You see the number of hours each year that are actually below freezing. That's what that sort of bar is. There's only 250 hours in a year, less than 5% of the hours in a year that we really worry about. Our heat pumps can keep up with everything else that we would have to back up with some other heat source. So a lot of the technologies that we need are here, but maybe not all of them. So there's a lot of intentionality in how we like roll out these systems like geothermal, like other technologies. But yeah, this is where we hope to be. This is where we are, sort of in 2024, in the top circle on the right top, and then where we hope to be in 2045, where all this heating is then coming from clean carbon-free sources. This is kind of where the campus plan and the decarbonization plan have to be integrated and come together. The campus plan is sort of a 10-year plan. The decarbonization plan is going to be longer than that. It's probably going to be out into the 2040s that it's going to take us to decarbonize. We don't know for sure what the date will be, but it's something we're working on really intentionally right now. So if you hear about this in the media, which is something the city is thinking about, electrification or decarbonization, this is exactly what we're working on. These are some of the policies we're looking at doing at a university level. None of these have been approved yet. These are all sort of draft, but we think this will be really fundamental to what our next climate action plan addresses. In some ways, we're already starting. You might have seen the construction. This is an image from my office window of the geothermal between Sullivan and Piper Hall going in this summer. It is now a beautiful garden. I should share a finished photo because that's all been capped off. It's beautiful. It's ready to go. But this is the red truck there is actually a drilling well, just like you would drill for water if you were having like a drinking well or something like that. But instead, it was just drilling a borehole, and then it has that geothermal pipe that goes down and has a bend in the bottom and comes all the way back up. There's 24 wells over there. They provide about 70 tons of heating and cooling energy. You can see it there in some different metrics. But we're going to do this. We'll probably be doing a lot more geothermal every time we're looking at a building or a construction project kind of anywhere at Loyola. It's such a great sustainable technology. And at sort of the commercial scale, we do it, the sort of slightly bigger building, having a campus, having a little bit of land next to the building. It's something that we can really use and optimize for our purposes. Um, uh, we're also looking across all of our greenhouse gas emissions. I won't do a like intro to greenhouse gas accounting right now. It's just to say, I talked about scope 1 and 2. You can see them there, the green and the gray arrows, the ones that are kind of directly energy use. But scope 3 includes all this stuff. It includes the things we buy, the things we throw away. It includes business travel, or for us, student study abroad travel. It includes commuting of our students or our faculty, our staff. It includes the buildings we operate, not as Loyola, but for property management purposes. So through our Lakeside Management Program, it includes our endowment. So you see that at the very far right, our investments. So all different. So we've been doing work all summer. A series of technical groups have been exploring all of these, trying to get an idea of their carbon footprint. You'll see sort of a snapshot of that in a moment. We're not done with that work, but we're, almost there. You'll see sort of a draft version of where we're at in here in a second. Um, but yeah, this is just technical work we've been doing. Let me just mention the timeline that we're on. It's different than the campus plan timeline. This is really what Loyola's next climate action plan will look like. So it includes academic things, it includes engagement and outreach communications things. It includes a bunch of other things that aren't, just buildings and infrastructure kinds of things. So we're hoping that we'll have a pretty good draft done by the end of the fall. We're looking for opportunities like this to talk to folks from the Loyola community, but also from those in interested neighbors about what it should include, what we should prioritize in it. And then we're hoping that we'll be able to bring it to our cabinet, our board of trustees, in the very late fall, so that it can then be sort of adopted in the spring semester at some point and be the next 10-year plan for climate action. So I won't go through all the timelines here, but um, we know that climate is, you know, irrevocably connected, intrinsically connected to the values that we have as a university. Those are related to diversity and inclusion. Those are related to our Catholic Jesuit identity. Those are related to the communities where we're located. They're related to sort of global awareness and multiculturalism. All of these values are very rich here at Loyola, and we don't want to make the mistakes of the past where only a few people gain the benefits of this kind of clean energy transition. So you might have heard this referred to, not so much lately or recently, but it used to be referred to as sort of the Green New Deal. That if we're going to be investing in these changes and really addressing the climate crisis that we have, how do we do it while making space for everybody? So we're doing a lot of reflection on this with our different constituencies. There's a lot of great environmental justice organizations in the nearby community. There's also some great, oh, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for the chat. And so we're really reflecting on this and to try to make sure that our mission, our identity, and these values are reflected in this climate action plan. We addressed it a little bit in our first plan, but not to the degree and not to the depth that we're hoping to do in Climate Action Plan 2.0. So I'm going to pause for a second. This is something I created. I don't know if this is valuable or not, but I'm just going to say it out loud. And if this doesn't lead to a conversation, that's fine. I just wanted to sort of spark some ideas or some thinking. So I have some project specific examples because if you think about it, like the geothermal example I gave, yeah, these projects become construction projects. So they become, we have to either take down a building or build a new building or clear a little bit of landscape so we can put an energy system in or a stormwater system in. So you can see the second example is like a stormwater garden, like we did at the Piper Garden 2 years ago. Or it can be something else. It could be like our fleet, those vehicles that I mentioned, or yeah, transitioning to electric or something like that. So those are some like project specific ideas, but we can also step back and say, okay, what if we have these big goals of trying to change the commuting pattern that we have of our students and our employees? What if we change our purchasing? We already try to prioritize local and sustainable spend in our purchasing, but what if we had even more, thanks, Jennifer, but what if we had even more ambitious goals, either for the companies that we support, that we spend our dollars at, or working in partnership with some of the local companies to make sure that they are able to have some of the sustainable sort of aspects that we're looking for in some of the purchasing. So, more of a partnership approach. So I guess these are just examples that I think about, both like general and then project specific. I don't know if anybody has any ideas or feedback here that they'd love to like to share about like what the positive impacts could be, or maybe the negative impacts, because some of these things we do, I know if we're building geothermal, if anybody tried to drive by the corner at Sheridan, there were times when that was a driveway and it might have backed traffic up on Sheridan. I'm not sure if that we see that as a big negative, because obviously I'm trying to get people maybe out of their cars a little bit more and onto transit or onto bikes or onto pedestrians friendly stuff. But are there any things that come up either as like other great community benefits or maybe even negative community impacts from some of these kinds of changes? And you can put it in the chat, or maybe it's just a, you know, a question to ponder. And if something comes up, you can always share it. I'm really open for feedback going forward. And I'll take a drink of water since I've been talking for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes straight. If not, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Uh, I'm not, this is a half-baked thought. Um, but maybe you can just go along with me in this thinking because there's an inherent tension um in all of this, right? In everything that is sustainable, there's a tension in the way that we as Americans are kind of used to living and the big changes that need to be made in order in order to reduce our footprint. So when I think about Loyola's campus plan and campus plans of past decades, one very real example comes to mind. So in 2014, and I don't know who on this call, where they're from or how long they've lived in the neighborhood. 10 years ago, Loyola vacated the 6300 block of North Kenmore Avenue, which is where that greenhouse building, the School of Environmental Sustainability that you shared, which is where it is. Um, and in vacating the street, we eliminated the curb and gutter system, right? Eliminated water running into the sewers and instead put in permeable pavement and native plantings, and also eliminated about 50 street parking spaces, which had previously been available to anybody who wants to circle around the neighborhood and find a parking space. So that was a tension, right? Because you can't say we want a more sustainable campus. Let's eliminate curb and gutter and drive stormwater into the ground and into the lake instead of into the sewer system. And also make a more pedestrian oriented, green friendly, native planting environment while also getting rid of parking, parking spaces. And so that was an inherent tension. Um, I don't know I don't know if you polled the community if they would say it was worth it or not worth it, or how they manage the sort of personal trade-offs of losing the parking spaces, losing the shortcut around Sheridan Road traffic. And then thinking into the future, if Loyola were to that in 2012, we were 2 mayors ago, but Mayor Emanuel actually approved the vacation of the 6300 block of Winthrop as well. And Loyola did move forward with it at the time and said, let's just live with Kenmore for a while and see how that works out. So if going into our new plan, we were to bring to the community the completion of that project and close Winthrop, how do we, I just wonder how people feel about that tension. Ooh, how people
Mhm.
feel about that tension, right? That is like, we drive down Winthrop, we park on Winthrop, but at the same time, it would be great if it were more sustainable.
Yeah.
So to me, like that's a very, very real,
Yeah.
like literal rubber meets the road, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And all these spaces are used for different things and different purposes. And, I'm sure there's some ecology faculty here at Loyola that would like to have no turf anywhere, right? All prairies or rain gardens or other sort of highly sustainable landscape. But we do have turf because we have students that want to throw a frisbee or, that walk their dogs or community members that walk their dogs. And we have, need to put a picnic out on one of our quads or, or for folks, someone to get married there or, these other purposes. So yeah, I mean, I'll just give a real, in the same vein, of a real specific example. It's not been that long that the city of Chicago has changed their sustainable development policy. It used to mandate that we had to have green roofs at a certain, percentage of the roof surface. Now it's a menu-based approach where solar and you put together different sustainable solutions to meet the sustainable development policy. And, a green roof and solar panels are in conflict with each other. Right. So now there's a lot of creative technologies out there, this concept of like agrivoltaics, where agriculture and solar panels are sort of given space to each other. Maybe the panels are a little further apart so you can grow crops in between, but that's still, very much a space competition. And there's benefits to both of those technologies. I'm a big advocate for solar panels because they actually save you a lot of money compared to green roofs that have a little savings for maybe energy efficiency, like the insulation, and a little savings for the stormwater benefit, but actually solar panels pay for themselves. You get that payback within about 6 or 7 years. So, um, anyway, yeah, these are trade-offs and these are challenges. And I think it really, in many ways, the way I get at this, thinking about sustainability more broadly on behalf of Loyola, is we go back to like fundamental values. So when we have a definition for sustainability or climate action at Loyola, which of the solutions that are in front of us most closely addresses the values that we've said? Because sustainability is a word that means lots of things to different people. Everybody has their sort of, I do this exercise with classes. I say, how many of you have a definition for sustainability? And they all raise their hand. How many of you think it's a positive word? They all raise their hand. How many of you think your definition matches the person next to you? And they all put their hands down. It is a very personal and, sort of individually interpreted term. So you have to define it real specific to the project, the context of the question. So, all right, I'm going to have one more slide. I'm going to stop sharing. I know we're really close to the end of the hour, but thanks, for folks that have stuck with us. I'm really glad you're here. So what's next? So I'm going to put a bunch of links in the chat, and give you some time. These are things I mentioned as we were going. One of them is the link that Jennifer mentioned at the beginning, which is the Campus Plan Community Engagement site. So you can click on that. If you haven't seen the Campus Plan report, which is available on our website, here's like the front page of it. I just happen to have a copy of it right here. That's the link to the report. Our 2015 Climate Action Plan, which I gave an overview, is linked right there. It's a PDF. Hopefully it opens up. Some of these projects, facilities department has been trying to do a much better job of sharing project specific information, either like if a construction season's coming, we're going into the summer, what are all the construction projects going to look like and where will they be? Will there be detours? Not so much on streets, but more like on sidewalks and stuff if folks could go through campus. So I wanted to highlight their page because I think it has great information on it. Please watch the stormwater video. It's great. It shows so much and it really gets into the technologies and all these different landscapes that we just walk across without thinking about it. It's a really lovely little video that was made a year and a half ago. And then we're starting to put more information on this last link here. You'll see there's a bunch of things that are still like in italics or their information isn't there yet, but we're going to be putting more and more information on there to keep people up to speed on what we're thinking about with our next climate action plan. So if you're interested in this topic, you can always email me at the email that you see here, sustainability@luc.edu. Or you can go to this website and you will start to see resources sort of being populated there over the next couple weeks. So, yeah, we've done a lot of work here. We have students working on stuff. We have different staff at Loyola that are helping sort of develop what the next climate action plan will look like. But we really want to hear from all of our stakeholders, all members of the Loyola community, and what we should think about. So this may be what you thought you were signing up for tonight. It may not be, but thanks so much for those of you that stuck with us and participated. I think that's it. Yep, just a thank you slide. Again, our generic sustainability page is luc.edu/sustainloyola, and that sustainability@luc is an email me or my colleague Megan check every couple days. So I'm going to stop sharing over here. And if anybody has any questions, feel free, raise your hand. I can take you off mute. We can just chit chat yeah, or you can put it in the chat and I'm happy to address it. We've still got about 5 minutes. So if you can log off and go on with your evening, have your dinner, catch up on whatever shows or work you need to do. But thanks so much for being with us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. It's all very, very technical, but I really appreciate it. I mean, even as someone who's relatively close to these decisions as they get made, you still don't realize the enormity of it until you sit through all of those slides and try to zoom in on exactly what is happening. But I very much appreciate it. Anybody else who's still on the call have any questions for Aaron? or for me about any of this before we officially wrap up. We might call on you just to make sure you're still awake. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Thank you very much, Erin. Thank you for Cecilia for helping to set this up. Um, and if we can figure out how we're going to link this entire video on our YouTube channel and on our website. Otherwise, as Erin said, he can share the slides to people who are interested in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.